Good evening, everybody. Thank you guys very much for attending as usual. I'm sure my face is starting to become familiar to many of you who have joined a lot of these, but thankfully tonight I won't be chatting too much. My name is Joel Dragan. I am the Executive Director for Florida Youth Soccer, and I'm really happy tonight to get out of the realm a bit of administrative. I feel like I've been talking everybody to death about risk management, insurance, liabilities, the very important things, governance from last night with Mike Flood. But tonight we're going to talk about something very specific and very helpful to everybody. So I thank everybody for being on here. First and foremost, I have to remind everybody that the session is being recorded per usual. It'll be up on YouTube tomorrow. And again, we thank you guys for being here. We're going to run this just a little bit different. Siggi here wants to have a little bit more engagement than we normally have on some of these. So of course you can type any questions into the chat and I'll get them to Siggi. You can raise your hand specifically if you want to say something, but just right off the bat, I am going to unmute everybody, or at least give you the option to unmute. A lot of you guys will have to unmute yourselves, but let me do that real quick. And once I do that, I will in fact, I'll do that right now. I'll turn it over to Siggi, who's going to present tonight on college planning and recruiting. He's a wealth of knowledge on this, guys. So really, please feel free to ask a lot of questions. This can be a very confusing process, and we've got a guy here on staff who has seen it from both angles. So you are now all unmuted, and with that being said, feel free to ask questions, interrupt if you will, but I'm going to mute myself and turn it over to Siggi. Thanks, Sig.
Thank you, Joel, and thank you everybody for taking time out of your busy schedule. We're going to try to keep it to an hour. If it runs over a little bit, Joel might give us the hook, but this is an important topic. Very passionate about it. So I showered, shaved, and I'm actually wearing pants today, so we're all in good shape. I'm going to talk a lot about myths and realities. I like to present facts and data and personal experiences when I share this topic with you. So everything will be, framed in that reference. If there's specific topics that you need to have addressed, please type those in the chat box. We're going to do kind of a 30,000-foot overview, as I can spend a whole hour just talking about social media and how student athletes need to properly manage that. The presentation is going to be in two segments. The first segment is going to be about the business part of getting into a college and what all that entails. And then the second part will be the athletic portion of it. So bear with me on the first part in terms of some terminology, some facts, some data that you need to be aware of. Because let's face it, just like FYSA has more rec players than we have competitive players, we have to be a full service organization as a club and us as an organization. So short term, I want to just show you that there's a lot more to know about this topic than maybe people realize. And long term, my goal is to either certify or educate at least one person in as many clubs as we can with the help of FYSA. So when people have questions in your club, they can come to that person, they can come to me, and we get those questions answered and get them on the right track. So hopefully that's a fair goal for us to accomplish tonight. Part of the reason I'm so passionate about this topic, one of the reasons is this is Logan Fleck. His father was one of the first directors of coaching for FYSA, a guy that just loved life, unfortunately left us way too early due to health issues. But his passion for the game, his passion for teaching, educating, and making people feel good about themselves is one of the reasons that I'm really passionate about this topic. So everything I do in this realm is in honor of him. Here's kind of the marching orders my parents left me with. Son, I love you very much, but if you're going to go to college, you will have to find a way to pay for it, as mom and I are unable to help you. So my senior year, I finally started getting a little bit serious about wanting to go to college. And these are the marching orders I got from my parents. My father was in the service, and my mother was a stay-at-home mom. So income was very limited. So there was no financial assistance that I was going to be able to expect from them. So that's another reason I'm getting very passionate about this topic. Hopefully at the end of this presentation, you'll understand that college is for sure three things: that it's essential. I know I've been applied for some jobs where I didn't have the right credentials, and it's expensive, and you'll see just by the sticker prices on the next slide. And you have to understand it's also a business for the colleges, and how do we deal with them in that realm. So here's some annual yearly costs of some colleges and universities. And if you multiply that times 4, you'll get the approximate cost for a 4-year education at places like Duke, Stanford, MIT, Emory, USF, and UF. Does anybody know why Miami is so expensive? Okay, Miami is a state school, but it's also a private school. So compared to USF and UF, you can see the difference in the cost. Here's the cold hard truth that you have to understand that you're competing with if you're looking to either send players in your club or your son or daughter to college. Annually, there's approximately 459,000 men's soccer players playing high school, and there's roughly 25,000 college men's soccer players. So the odds of someone out of high school going directly to the NCAA, doesn't matter what division, you can see the percentages there, is roughly 1 in 20 on the men's side. And we have not even discussed someone's GPA, their soccer ability, their financial status, etc. On the women's side, it's a little bit better, but it's roughly 1 out of 14, 1 out of 15 high school players, if they're looking to pursue college athletics, will get the opportunity to wear that jersey. So just understand there's a lot of competition. I'm going to try to give you some insight on how to get it to the front of the line or enhance your chances. But you need to know, again, what the odds are. Some of these slides I'll spend more time on. Some I'll just rush through a little bit. If you read the green part, the wealthier the family, the more scholarship money the students get from colleges and universities. Sounds like it's kind of a wrong statement, but what are scholarships based on? Scholarships based on things that you do well, whether it's on a soccer field, in the band, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see even people that make 6 figures get a pretty good chunk of average financial aid through scholarships. Whereas government grants are a totally different story. They're intended to help those that are less fortunate and have a different level of income. So you can kind of see the distribution there per person. Something I'm happy to see is that the trend on the bottom, as far as how families typically pay for college, there's more trend going towards parents saving more money instead of borrowing it. And you'll see in a couple slides why I'm so passionate about people not borrowing more money than they need to. So you can see how a typical family puts that piece together. I underlined a couple of articles that I'd be more than happy to send you that I thought were very interesting. Is colleges are struggling to find students. So some of them are having a hard time filling seats in their campuses. The college board leader that puts on the SAT test failed his own test. So you can see that there's some changes that came about because of it. Unless you go to a private school, the average ratio of a counselor to the students is roughly 1 to 450. And a lot of them don't have the athletic background to properly advise a student athlete. There's roughly 800,000 international students. I was one of them. Nearly half are from China, India, and South Korea that are currently enrolled in U.S. colleges and universities. So we have additional competition trying to get the limited seats. This is probably a very hot topic. Admissions officers, coaches, you name it. Not occasionally, but now frequently look at your social media posts if you're applying to a school, if you're being recruited by a university, and several offers of scholarships have been withdrawn because of whatever political stance or posts that they had on their social media. So like I said, I could talk a whole hour and scare the crap out of children. A couple cartoons that might get the point across is the guy in the front trying to figure out how to pay for tuition. Guy in the back, keeps playing the lottery and hoping he wins the jackpot to have some more money coming in. For a lot of people, college planning, college recruiting is a very confusing topic. They don't know when to start, how to start, what's important, what's not. But ultimately, it is about getting an education and providing a better quality of life for the student and their family. Another favorite of mine is you got the fraternity house, sorority house, and if the college costs keep going up as they have been, the majority of us may find ourselves in the poorhouse. We'll skip that one and that one. This is probably my favorite. Is, are you retiring soon? And the old gentleman saying, as soon as my student loan is paid off. And it's a very real thing that they're dealing with. And we'll talk about it a little more in detail. People ask me all the time what parents' role should be. Are they should not be involved? Are they too involved? But basically, you just want to be a support system for the child that you're trying to get into college, and help them gather information and make them responsible for helping with this process as much as the parents are. Obviously, it comes to financial decisions. The parents will have the final say, and it needs to be a family decision. A couple of articles that recently I came across is Money Magazine. Simply put, a great number of colleges are now willing to pay to get the students they want. So many are offering financial aid to families that earn in excess of $150,000. And that's just in terms of they want to recruit the best available candidates out there, and they don't want financial income to be a deterrent. By 2020, which has been an interesting year, 3/4 of all jobs will require a college education, which has risen significantly from just a few years ago, JP Morgan article. And financial aid has become a free-for-all, at least most families baffled and confused. We'll try to unconfuse you a little bit. The reason I gave you this slide here is for giving you some idea of what you can expect maybe as an average salary starting out. So obviously if in the engineering, medical world, any of those type of majors, you can expect a fairly good salary starting right off the bat. But if you're a social worker or a teacher of any kind, it saddens me when those people borrow hundreds of thousands of dollars to pay for tuition and then have an annual salary of 35, 40,000. And they're already behind the 8 ball trying to pay those student loans back. So it's really important that they have an understanding of, again, what are my expectations in terms of income when I graduate with a major. Something else, a fun website, if you ever want to kind of figure out what your chances are of getting into a particular university, mychances.net. It'll ask you a series of questions, and it can predict to a pretty accurate extent what your chances are of getting into the school of your choice. If you see the green dollar figures, the average high school dropout earns about $18,000, $19,000, which is hardly a wage that you can live on these days, period. So if a high school graduate averages about $28,000, someone with a bachelor's degree about $51,000, and someone with an advanced degree, master's degree, doctorate, etc., roughly $75,000. And on the bottom, you'll see the average working person spends about 40 years working. So the difference between going to college and getting a degree is about $1 million in lifetime earnings, as opposed to just graduating from high school. There's a continued debate whether going to college is still a good investment, and in my opinion, it's a great investment, still one of the best ones you'll make, because it does open more doors, and especially if you're going into the teaching or different areas where your degrees warrant a certain type of starting salary. I'll send these slides to you, but there's some great websites that can help you compare apples with apples, can warn you of maybe some schools that have high default rates for people that are taking out loans and they can't pay them back because they can't find a job. I like the college reality check that Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation supports, and collegecost.ed.gov is a very good website to compare, again, one school to another, so you can make an intelligent decision. Specifically for Florida students, you can see on the slideshow that they like to borrow money. The average Florida student owns about $26,000 in student debt, which ranks us pretty high, fifth in amongst the 50 states. So roughly $61 billion in federal loans are taken out by 2.3 million students. One of the best programs the government initiated is the Pay As You Earn program, which basically caps your loan repayments at about 10%, and the outstanding debt can be forgiven after 20 years. Or if you go into a field that has shortage of nurses, teachers, they might even forgive it sooner. Unfortunately, Florida also ranks pretty high in loan default rate. Roughly 1 out of 10 people that borrow money to go to college, unfortunately, default. And defaulting on your student loans is not a good thing. A lot of bad things will happen to you. And we've already talked about the collegecost.ed.gov website. Again, great resource of information that allows you to compare one school to another. Let's talk about specifically to what some of the admissions and some of the schools go through. The University of Florida receives over 30,000 applications on an annual basis, and they have roughly 19 full and part-time staff to review those applications. But they only spend an average of 7 minutes per application. I don't know about any of you guys, but in 7 minutes to be able to wrap my head around a young man or young woman that's looking to get into my university is very tough. So that puts the emphasis on that the application is outstanding. The Ivy League does spend a little bit longer, about roughly 30 minutes per application, and they also have an interview process where you meet face-to-face with somebody that represents the university. Most schools use some kind of application scale. If you've ever seen the movie Admissions with Tina Fey, hilarious. I highly recommend it. So for example, I have an evaluation form from Harvard University, and the 3 basic categories that you're going to evaluate your application on is your academics, which is your test scores and your grades, your activities, whether it's a sport, whether it's chess club, robotics, etc., and then your references, which is your personal or character. And the gentleman that shared this with me said, if you're a 1 in 2 of the 3 areas and maybe a 2 or 3 in a 3rd area, you're probably going to get waitlisted for Harvard. So it's very, very important to get the highest ranking in each one of those, and we'll show you some things on how to do that. I'm going to skip this slide. There's probably about 3 pages worth of acronyms and abbreviations that I can also send you. If you want to apply for financial aid, and about 81% of college kids that are entering college apply for it, the FAFSA is still the most common way to do that. That's the free application for federal student aid. And basically it determines your net worth and how much your family will be expected to contribute to their son or daughter's education. So the way the colleges work is what's the total cost for them per year, what's the family expected to contribute, they subtract one from the other, and the bottom line is the financial aid that's needed for you to be able to attend that university. And whether a coach is involved or just the admissions and financial aid people, they try to find a way to meet as much or all of that need as possible. So those are some terminologies that you want to get used to. These numbers are probably not exact, but most people, when they see the cost of a private school, they already move on. Again, some terminology that you want to get familiar with is, again, COA is cost of attendance, EFC is the expected family contribution, the financial need, percentages that you want to be aware of is how can St. Leo compete with a school like USF? Well, St. Leo meets about 73% of the average student applying's need. In this case, with the numbers we use, it's about $13,000, whereas USF only meets about 47%. So the average financial aid package there is about $5,000. You do the math in terms of out of pocket, and you can see how a school like San Leo, which is private and in our area here in Tampa, can be very competitive with a school like USF, which is a state school. The odds are definitely against you. Somebody want to take a guess of why people drop out of college? And over 50% of college students do. You think it's lack of funding, changing schools, or changing majors?
Everybody is unmuted on the phone if you guys want to speak up and say something. You may have to unmute yourselves personally as well, but we're not holding you back.
A lack of funding.
You are correct. But a lot of students, they change their major. Sometimes they have to change schools because of it. But lack of funding is definitely the number one topic. And we're in a very relevant time right now where people have lost jobs. People, someone's main breadwinner passes away. This is a very real thing that a lot of kids are dealing with. So the average student is taking much longer than what maybe parents have budgeted for. And the average student takes 5.5 to 6 years to get their bachelor's degree, when again, mom and dad just maybe have budgeted for 4 years. So thank you for that answer. The way to be successful in this process, and we're almost to the athletic part of it, which will probably be more exciting to most of you, but parents need to understand what they're dealing with behind the scenes, because we have a lot more players that aren't going to get college scholarships. We need to make sure we help them get into a college and pay as little as possible. I'm a big fan of doing a 3-step process where we get to know the family first, the player first, and give them what we call a career interest inventory, where we find out, if they were offered a 9-to-5 job tomorrow, what would that be based on a series of questions? And that'll help you with choosing the right college, the right major, et cetera, et cetera. Then we usually do some pre-testing, either PSAT, SAT, or ACT, just to see how they would do on the tests that they still are using primarily to determine whether someone gets into college. And then obviously we have to take a look at the financial picture. There's over 3,200 colleges, so there's got to be one that fits every family that has whatever goals they have, whether it's to play, whether it's just attend a college at minimal cost. But things like class size, distance from home, those are all factors that need to be considered. So make sure you have those discussions. And also, unfortunately, there's a lot of student loan defaults. Some of the online schools recently that have shut down, they unfortunately were much higher because people would get a degree from those universities and then couldn't find jobs and couldn't pay their loans back. And you can kind of see that domino effect. Another interesting stat is what we call the conversion rate. So if a school only accepts 10% of all the applications that they get, then they are pretty picky and they can kind of pick and choose who they want to admit. Whereas if the conversion rate, if the conversion rate's 10%, then they're having a hard time getting people in seats. So they're a lot more eager to maybe negotiate and help you with financial aid. Whereas somebody has a high conversion rate, they have more than enough people that want to attend their school, and therefore they may or may not give you the best offer because they know they have 3, 4, 5 people waiting behind any accepted player. Usually by your junior year at the latest, if you're an athlete, sometimes earlier, you want to try to have 6 to 8 schools and have your top choice, and have some backup schools as well. Some other facts about just paying for college, and you can read those for yourself. The one that's sad for me is the second from the bottom, is college debt for parents who are over 6 years old is now over 43 billion. So I'm hitting 59 this year. I'm looking to retire sometime in the next decade, but most people should be looking at their dream boat, dream vacation, retiring in style. Here they are still worrying about paying back student loans that they either took out for their son or daughter or granddaughter or whoever. So very realistic numbers. In terms of how you pay for college, we talked about the 4 or 5 different pockets of money that parents use. There's only basically 2 types of funding. One called gift aid, which is all the scholarships, grants, anything that you don't have to pay back. So you want to get as much of that as possible. Then we also have what's called self-aid, self-help aid, whether it's work study, whether it's money you borrow, et cetera, et cetera. Obviously, you have to pay that back. So you want to make sure you're prudent in how much you borrow. There's primarily 3 funding sources. This is, again, a question to you guys. Which one of those 3 listed do you think contributes the biggest amount of money to funding opportunities for people to go to college? So we have federal government, colleges, or private sector. Which one do you think gives the most money?
Federal government.
Okay. Anybody else for colleges or private sector?
I would think colleges.
Yeah, if you said the private sector only gives about 3% of the total dollars. So if a company like Coca-Cola, Walmart, international companies, they obviously have lots of reach, lots of applicants for those particular scholarships. So they're very minimal, and you a lot of times spend a lot of work and a lot of time applying for the scholarships. The second is the federal government. They give out billions of dollars in various funding, but the #1 source is still going to be the colleges. So those of you that said that, congratulations. Not that they're going to write you a check, but just like if you go shopping for a car, the sticker price is rarely ever what you pay. It's all about, again, negotiating and how much do they want to give you to attend their college, and how much can you contribute to send your son or daughter there. So it's important that you understand you want to spend the majority of your time. You do file the FYSA for the federal government, but do spend the majority of your time talking with the coaches and the admissions and financial aid people at the universities. So one part of the FYSA is, again, determining what your expected family contribution is. And you can see all the different pots of money that you might have money put aside. And if there's any financial planners on here, would love to get your feedback. So all of these pockets of money can be calculated at various percentages in terms of how much the federal government expects you to contribute towards your son or daughter's education. Part 2, the assets that are exempt are things like your retirement account, any savings you have in annuities, your life insurance cash value, and your family's primary residence. Obviously, those all serve a purpose. They don't expect you to sell your home, pay for your daughter's or son's education. So we want to have as much money in those 4 pockets of money, if possible. So talk to your financial specialist and to help you possibly move some money around if it makes sense. A lot of people don't think they need to file a FAFSA because they might not qualify. I would encourage everybody to do so. File the FAFSA because it does give you the opportunity to take out a loan if you wish. I had a full scholarship between my grades and my soccer scholarship, but I took out a small loan just to pay for my books, have some spending money, because I grew up in Germany and I was coming all the way to West Virginia to go to school. The FAFSA is roughly 8 pages long, so if you hold it in your hand and it hits the ground, and 75% have errors in them. One of my managers for one of my teams back in the day filled out $6,000 that they had in savings instead of $600. It took her several months to correct that error on the FAFSA, and unfortunately, she missed a lot of the deadlines for the money that was given out. So just make sure that that form is properly filled out, and there's a lot of organizations now that help you fill it out for free or counsel you on some strategies. As far as researching colleges and universities, keep your options open. Even if the Iowa Community College calls tomorrow and you have no desire to go to Iowa, listen to what they have to say. It's good experience for student athletes to try to talk to coaches, be respectful, because people from Iowa community colleges have had transferred to other schools, gotten good jobs, and now all of a sudden maybe you're interested in that university or that college that that person has transferred to. We'll talk more about what makes you most attractive. And the last thing on the slide is there's things called endowments that the universities have, and those endowments are basically used to entice the right student body mixture to attend their university. So if they feel you could be the next Mark Zuckerberg, the next Bloomberg, or anybody that might get famous and have a building named after them at the university, they might invest some extra dollars in you. So again, make yourself look as most attractive, not necessarily in the physical way. Fun survey I came across. I always like to share that with people. So overall, they feel these 5 schools do the best jobs in terms of different criteria that they were ranked on. I guess if you have champagne in your name of college, you should be the partiest school. If you want to be healthy, happy, cheap, or sexy, you go to those schools. Hopefully there's no Oberlin, Ohio graduates in this room, because that's what they feel is the worst return on your investment if you graduate from that university in terms of job prospects, maybe student loan debt, et cetera, et cetera. So take it for what it's worth. Fun survey. So now we get to the athletic portion. So wake up if you've been asleep, or now hopefully there'll be things that you'll be more interested in. But it's very important that you understand. Yep.
Siggi, I've got a question here in the chat, and I don't know if you're going to touch on it, so I waited for a bit to interrupt. But if you're going to get to it, we still can coming up. It just said, what can clubs do to help attract college coaches to come watch their players? And then it said, what can players do as far as communicating to college coaches?
Yeah, some of that we'll cover, but a lot of clubs have figured out that, it's just as affordable for me to, and we do an FYSA ODP combine every summer, except for this summer, where we bring in college coaches to our facility, as opposed to spending hundreds or thousands of dollars traveling to a showcase tournament. So a lot of the better clubs have figured out that, yes, we can invite, colleges from around the state, maybe throw them a hotel room or two, maybe take them out for a meal, take them out golfing, whatever it takes to get some of the schools that their players might be interested in, and getting them to come to, to attend this event. So we'll talk a little bit more about what the students can do to make themselves more attractive. But that's one of the probably most cost-effective ways to do that, especially in the age of COVID. I think a lot of the showcases are going to be maybe less games, get in, get out kind of thing. So this might be a good bang for your buck if you, can have organized, even if it's a couple of clubs put together, showcase a couple of students in your area, student athletes. So again, we talked a lot about what myth versus reality is. A myth is just something that's always been believed to be true, whereas reality is, again, the real deal and what the truth is. So if you kind of read the white part of the sentence, majority of students and parents believe that talented high school athletes are actively recruited and offered full ride sports scholarships by Division I college coaches. Okay, that's a myth. Whereas the teal colored says that the reality is only about 2% of these athletes are actively recruited. If I'm an Under Armour All-American, if I'm on one of the junior national teams for soccer, everybody's going to know about me because it's always publicized, and you're on TV and you have all these credentials that coaches want to bring to their school. But if you're not, if you want to part of the 98%, you're going to have to market yourself. And we're going to touch upon some things that you might want to do. One of my last coaching stops was at Florida Southern, so I have permission to use their picture. So here's some credentials, and the only reason I share that with you is not to brag, but to show you that I've been in your shoes. I've been a college coach, a high school coach, an NCAA national chairman. I've selected All-Americans. I've taught in the classroom. I've personally sent kids to college, and I've personally recruited kids to come to college. And I've taken a lot of my own time, my own resources to be certified as a college advisor with advanced credentials. And my current role as the ODP administrator for Florida Youth Soccer kind of lets me use all those talents to assist you guys, whether it's clubs or individual families. One of the best publications that you want to secure is it's published annually, and they used to have it in Spanish. I don't know if they still do, because I know a lot of our population, especially in the soccer arena, are Hispanics, and they're very talented, and sometimes things get lost in translation. So the College Bound Student Athlete Guide, it's 21 to 25 pages. It covers everything from what is a coach allowed to send me if I'm a freshman, sophomore, junior, senior in high school, if I'm homeschooled, if I need financial assistance for the fees for the testing, you name it. How do I determine if I'm eligible to participate in college athletics? So it answers a lot of the questions, and it even at the end of the document, it has some questions that you should ask when you start pursuing colleges and college coaches. So I highly recommend it. It's the CBSA, it's called, the College Bound Student Athlete Guide. Again, some fact, these numbers might have gone up or down a little bit, but there are roughly 2,600 programs in the country that offer men's or women's soccer. And you can kind of see the distribution between Division 1, 2, 3, NAIA, and junior colleges. Obviously, because of Title IX, there's a little bit more emphasis on providing opportunities for women. So keep that in mind. The scholarships, as far as I know, they have not changed. And also, please understand, as I was at Florida Southern, which is an NCAA Division II institution, and I was allowed to have 9.9 scholarships. And because of the priority of the school, my particular women's soccer program was allotted 2 scholarships. So you can see the challenges of coaches that with the average roster size at the bottom of your screen being 24 to 32 players, it makes it very difficult to get a full scholarship just for athletics only. You have to be a hell of a player, an All-American, maybe an overseas kid. So very few players will get a full athletic scholarship. Most of them will combine it with some academic money or some other sources of money. Division III does not offer athletic scholarships. They kind of have their niche in, doing a great job in terms of education. Facilities, a lot of times, are excellent. And I went to an NAIA school that was offered 12 scholarships. And junior colleges, it's all over the place. We have several very good ones in the state, and like Eastern Florida, Daytona State, ASA, and so forth. And some of them have 18 full scholarships that they have to give, so it makes it easier to attract the right kind of players. So just keep that in mind that, again, it's not coaches don't like your son or daughter. They don't appreciate their talents. It's they have to get as many quality players for as little money or whatever money they're giving by the school. Someone made the statement a long time ago, there's a place for everybody to play, and I agree with that. So the 5 different places that you can possibly find a university or college in is the NCAA, which everybody knows, Division 1, 2, 3. You also have the NAIA, which stands for the National Association of Intercollegiate Athletics, that I attended. A lot of those schools are moving into either Division 2 or Division 3, though. You have the Junior College Association, you have the Christian College Association, and you have the intramural and recreational associations. So just know that there is a place for everybody to play. It just has to fit within the parameters of what you're able to afford and the level of play that you have. I'm going to fly through these. State institutions, examples are UCF, UF, FAU. Like I said, University of Miami is private. So the biggest difference between private and state universities is you have a lot of times higher admission requirements and obviously higher tuition rates, but everything else is the same. 4-year schools, all kinds of financial aid and student loan assistance available. Service academies, I used to say the federal government is not going to run out of money, but based on what they're having to put out and at the rate we're spending, I may have to take that statement back. But any scholarship for the service academies, which is Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, is roughly $250,000 of education value at no cost. And the kicker there is you have to provide 5 years of military service. So there are some state and private military programs, such like VMI or the Citadel, and the biggest difference is, again, you don't have the military service required as part of getting that scholarship. Junior colleges become very, very popular. I think you guys can imagine why. Their tuition is very, very inexpensive. So a lot of people are doing the strategy of attending a junior college, and we have some great ones with great soccer programs within the state and the country. And then they transfer to their junior and senior year to maybe a school that's more expensive because they've been able to save money up, or the coach is able to give more financial aid in terms of a scholarship because they only have to pay for 2 years of college instead of 4. All right, so roughly about 1/3 of all students, and this is not just student athletes, this is just students in general, sorry, they transfer after the first year of college. My parents live in Montana, so I love my parents dearly, but certain times of the year I will not go see them. So Florida is a different lifestyle than Montana, so make sure wherever you're exploring your college options that you consider some of these parameters. You know, a University of Florida campus is much different than the school that I went to with barely 1,500, 2,000 students. The type of things you'd like to have done on campus, whether it's a sorority, fraternity, football program, etc. What type of learner are you? You know, what type of social entertainment do you need? Is it important for your parents and your family and others to see you play? That will incur some costs. And again, Montana is a lot different than Florida in terms of climate. So sometimes Florida players do not do well when they move out of this environment. So the fair amount is still primarily going to school in the Southeast, but we have more and more going to some really good schools into the Northeast and other parts of the country. So you may not send a cover letter anymore, but this could be in the form of an email as well. And this goes to the earlier question about how to, again, players make themselves more attractive. When I used to get hard copies of these cover letters and the resume, I got, and remember I coached women's soccer, I got pink stationery, I got the old glamour shop photos with the poofy hair, some of them sprayed perfume on it, all kinds of crazy stuff, but they stood out. Okay, you have to be original in how you present yourself. If you are just like everybody else, you're not going to stand out. And I was at a small school. I got over 1,000 resumes every year. You can imagine the big schools, how many players they might have interested in their program. It's also very important that you communicate what you're interested in. If you've always been a starter, if financial, whatever the most priority things are in your family or for you, make sure you get that out on the table early. If you're $1,000 apart when it comes to negotiating, that a lot of times can be happening. If you're $10,000 apart, you've spent 6 months to a year doing the song and dance with the coach. Now all of a sudden you spend a lot of time of a college that's never going to be able to be affordable for you. And then brag a bit about yourself. Why would you be a good fit for their program? If you're a goal scorer and you saw on their roster that just graduated their All-American goal scorer, you know, how can you fill that void? Brag about yourself. And don't just think because you sent an email or you sent a hard copy of a cover letter and a resume that the person received it. It might not be the most comfortable thing to do, but follow up with a phone call. Again, it sets you apart when everybody else is sending emails. If you're able to send a phone call or a text, it might set you apart from all the hundreds of emails that coaches get every day. And then it's up to you guys, whether you go to a showcase tournament or you're just starting the process, is let people know where they can see you play, whether it's high school, whether it's showcases, club, wherever. Be as specific as you can. So if the tournament schedule gets published a week before the tournament, send that to the coaches, let them know what field, what jersey number, what position you normally play, whether you start, you play the second half, et cetera, et cetera. As college coaches, that's how they create their list of who they come and see play. It's the people that have reached out to them. So make sure that you make it as easy for them to find you and as specific as you can in terms of what they can expect. I work a little bit with the sports stores, and they have a big disclaimer on the bottom that this is just a template that you can use. Be creative, be original. I had a player one time that ended up going to the University of North Carolina on a soccer scholarship, and she actually she was a goalkeeper. She had a picture of her flying through the air, making a save. The parent used the color of the school in terms of the paper that they send, the name of the mascot in the body of the particular document. So if you send this exactly like it is, word for word, coaches are probably going to throw it in the trash because they get hundreds of these where people are too lazy or they don't take the time to make a first impression, and you only get one chance to make a good first impression. So I've always been a big fan of, on the cover letter, some kind of personal picture, whether it's something that you would use for your senior class, etc. And then when you actually see the resume, I would put on some kind of action photo of you playing your actual sport. Because you are a student athlete, you're not one or the other. You have to make sure that you excel in both areas. So in terms of giving some meat to the bones here, I don't need to know what you did in 7th grade at the YMCA. Basically, how do I get a hold of you? What have you done in the classroom? Have you taken any of my test scores so I can see if you would be eligible to be admitted? What kind of student are you? What have you done on the soccer field? Who can I talk to about you? And anything that you're proud of that you want to brag about. But make sure it's relevant. Because again, stats can be deceiving, but if you've shown that you've played at a high level, that you've achieved some things, whether it's ODP, state championships, etc., that does resonate with coaches in terms of being able to distinguish players. So here's kind of what a resume would and should look like. If you make a resume 2, 3, 4 pages and the good stuff's on the last page, college coaches may never see this. They all have ADD. They all got tons of stuff to do. So just give them the basic stuff. Yeah, when does this kid graduate? So I know where they fit in my recruiting cycle. What kind of student are they, and how can I get a hold of them? Okay, so those are, again, the basic things that you want to make sure that you cover. I'm going to wrap it up and open it up for some questions. Like I said, I can spend a whole hour just talking to you about Facebook, using proper email addresses, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, you name it. The best example I can give you, if you see Coach Siggi Nagele with a red Solo cup in his hand, you're going to form an opinion one way or the other. I could be drinking water, could be drinking Gatorade, maybe I'm having a beverage. So again, what you put out on Facebook in terms of your political stance, even your friends that you are befriended with, what do they talk about? I had to unfriend several former players of mine that were female because they would post pictures of how they dressed up for college parties. So I emailed them. I said, hey, I'm glad you're having fun, look great, but this is not something I can have on my Facebook feed or my professional page. So just understand that all these things, again, have drawbacks. There was a case a few years ago, I believe it might have been in Tampa, where they made an employee log into their Facebook account and they had to explain on a job interview a post or a picture that they had, and it ended up costing them his job. There was another one where there was a picture on somebody's social media and they were denied custody of their son's daughter or their child because of something that they had on their social media. So it does matter. People do pay attention. A lot of coaches, maybe admissions people, will befriend you so they can kind of see what's going on. So make sure you clean that up before you get into the recruiting process. In terms of summary, who to see on campus, hopefully you remember that you should always make an appointment with the college coaches. If possible, be respectful of their time, give them advance notice. Try to meet with the admissions counselor or even the dean of admissions so they can put a name with a face. And then also meet with the financial aid director or the financial aid office. So when you actually get to negotiating or trying to get accepted somewhere, then you have specific people that you can, address. You also want to try to sit in on a class when you go visit colleges if possible, because maybe the professor that teaches that class, introduce yourself to them. Hey, I'm visiting, trying to see what the campus is like and what classes are like. You can later use that college professor as kind of an internal source to maybe give some feedback to the financial aid, admissions, or the college coach. So keep that in mind. When do you think you should take campus visits? When do you think is not a good time? Maybe right now because nobody's on campus, right? I coached at Ecker College in St. Petersburg, and Monday mornings was probably the worst time to bring a student athlete on campus, because obviously college kids do what college kids do on weekends. But occasionally there was a couch that was thrown out of a window, beer cans everywhere before campus had a chance to clean that up. So the best time to be on campus is when they're in session. Sometimes just drop in unannounced if it's an unofficial visit where the school doesn't pay for anything. The coach may not be expecting you. Just drop in, see if people are walking with their head down, or if people are friendly. What's the general vibe or buzz on campus? So it's important when you take those visits. Wouldn't take them during holidays. If you have a tournament or something that might have some college campuses in the area, maybe take some time to take some visits there, or plan it throughout the year. I do have a pretty extensive college planning handbook with a bunch of checklists and things that would, I think, be very useful for you. Just email me and I'll make sure I send that to you. It's pretty big file, so it might have to be Dropboxed or some other way to distribute it to you. Understand the timelines. Traditionally from August to about December, it's all about getting into colleges. And then usually the rest of the year, it's all about, again, how do I pay for it, financial aid, etc. So understand the priorities for schools and coaches as well. And early decision, this just means that you're committing to a college early, which helps them meet their quotas, but it also binds you to that college. So if you back out, then you have to either get back in the queue, or you might want to have to consider other colleges. So again, I breezed through a lot of this. Again, we can dig deeper into any one of these. Again, my goal is to either through online webinars or in person, once we're allowed to see each other again, is try to find 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people on any given club campus, educate them on how to use NCAA resources, how to use resources on the internet, share with them, my personal experiences and facts, so they can advise properly their membership, because again, not everybody's going to get a scholarship for soccer, and how can we still assist those people that make up a good base of our membership. So I'm going to open it up to the floor. If it's something that you want to talk offline, here's my contact information. I'm sorry I did a lot of talking, but there's a lot of information that I'm very passionate to share with you. And again, any one of these topics we can expand on and probably spend an hour. If you're interested in being certified, it's about an 8-hour course where you would take 2 tests. One is an NCAA test, and the other is just a general financial and general college admissions test. You do a pre-test, you go through the course, which is 8 hours, and then you have to pass the post-tests with an 80% to be certified as a college advisor. So if that's something that's of interest to you, FYSA would love to find a way to do that for you or your club. So please let us know how we can support you. You guys are members, so we value your membership. So let's open it up to the floor. Any particular topics we need to expand on, we didn't cover. We've got probably about 5 to 10 minutes. So fire away, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Siggi, I got one here from the chat from earlier. Roundabout, what grade do players want to start to get serious about college recruiting? I guess particular to soccer, you hear all this stuff about 7th graders committing in college football and everything. But what about soccer? What is kind of the right time frame?
Yeah, that's a great question. AAU and basketball and football, they're out of control. Again, they're offering scholarships to kids straight out of the womb. General thought is if finances are a concern, you want to start as early as possible to make sure you have the financial strategy in place. But generally, in terms of soccer, I would say probably 9th grade. The minute you enter high school, every course that you take is going to count towards your eligibility and your GPA. Every teacher you have could be a reference. And again, if you're like me, you don't want to get serious, you're a junior or senior year in high school, trying to get your GPA up, it's very difficult. So you want to make sure you start from day one when you go into high school in terms of make sure you get good grades, along with putting the time and effort into the soccer field. So if you're thinking that you can play Division I, most of the time they're recruiting what's called 2 years out. So at the latest, at the end of your sophomore year, beginning of your junior year, they're going to reach out to you in some form or fashion, and they're going to let you know they're interested in you, or they're going to have some offer to you. Because what they don't want to do is necessarily replace a senior All-American college player that just graduates with a bright-eyed, deer-in-the-headlights freshman that doesn't really even know what college soccer is all about. So they might bring you in a year early before they expect you to play, sometimes 2 years before you maybe get regular minutes, unless you're just a high-quality player and they need to plug you in right away. So generally, I'd say the sophomore and junior years are the most important in terms of exposure, because if you wait till your senior year and nobody's seen you yet and you get injured, there's no way to make that up. There's no way to be seen. A lot of the scholarship dollars are probably already spent. So the heavy lifting needs to be done your sophomore and junior year. And obviously, anything academically from 9th grade on, it becomes fairly important. So great question, whoever asked that. Thank you.
Thanks, Siggi. Another one that I've got here is, what, if any, difference is there between the recruiting process, maybe from both sides, between males and females? I know you put the stat up there earlier, and I'm kind of expanding upon it here, that there were a few more female scholarships out there, but maybe bird's eye view, what's the difference kind of between the two in soccer?
It's a great question, and I'm going to give you my personal opinion / background. Is obviously there is more money available for the women's side, being with 14 scholarships as opposed to 9.9. So that allows maybe a player that wouldn't be a starter for one university get as much or more money at a different university, and maybe at a smaller institution where they would play more. So it could be a difference in the amount of scholarship money that they are offered. And coaches of female teams might value, different things more, like team camaraderie, work ethic. Not to say that male coaches don't, but they might value technical ability more. So again, it all depends on the eye of the beholder as far as what they're looking for. But traditionally, the biggest difference is there's more opportunities and there's more money on the women's side as opposed to the men's side. And it's very difficult once you've been awarded scholarship dollars for a coach to take that back from you. So that's why you'll a lot of times see maybe no money the first year or very minimal dollars. And then maybe the second year, once you've proven yourself and you haven't gained 20 pounds or dropped out of school or gotten arrested, they might give you more money, because coaches are going to reward players that help them win and keep their jobs, because that's still how they're being evaluated in many ways. Graduation rates, wins and losses, and how their players conduct themselves on and off the field. So great question.
Sure. Everyone's microphone is open. You will need to unmute yourself if you want to say anything on this topic. We can give it a few more minutes here, so feel free, anyone, to come off mute.
Hopefully you guys are all still awake. I do appreciate you making time. I know it's late in the evening, but this is an important topic. Again, different things might have more importance to you than others. So if you're not comfortable or not sure what questions to ask, please reach out to me by email. You got my office number and my personal cell phone. Text me, call me. I'll give you whatever information you need. Someone asked a question earlier about, what should you be doing as a freshman, sophomore, etc. There's some great checklists of what you should be doing by quarter of each grade that you're in terms of academically and soccer. So I'll be more than happy to send that out to you. And I may just send you some documents based on who all registered for this, and hopefully it's some useful things you can pass on, or maybe generate some additional questions. So we'd love to get your feedback too.
Mute there.
Go ahead.
Siggi.
Yes, sir.
Siggi, when a player is applying to a college, when a player is reaching out to a college coach, Can the player, or is it good for their current club coach to give a supporting letter as well as? Does that help in any way?
Absolutely. If you start getting parents on phones or get parents too heavily involved, that might, put off some college coaches. But especially if somebody can talk intelligently about the game and their son or daughter without maybe showing, blatant favoritism, college coaches appreciate getting as much information, and it's a great relationship to develop. So maybe I didn't recruit the player you presented to me today, but I know this particular person that I talked to was very honest with me, very insightful into the game. Maybe now they have a big time player that I want to go after. I know who to reach out for in that area to maybe get some additional feedback about that player or another player. So it can't hurt. But again, it's not about maybe beating your own chest if you're a coach or whatever. It's about just giving some insight. What kind of player am I bringing into my program? And here's why you should consider this young man or young woman. So great question.
Thank you, Ziggy. Thank you, Ziggy.
Yes, sir.
So we've got one last one in the chat box here, and then we'll let everybody go. I think it's a good question and probably a good way to end. It was something that I had written down as well. Giovanni asked, and I'm going to expand on it a little bit. Are there any particular tournaments which are beneficial for college coaches to see you? I was going to ask Siggi kind of along the same lines of everything's a showcase these days, right? How do you kind of wade through those waters and know which ones are more beneficial than anything? That term seems to have become really hot these days. It's a showcase, college exposure. It's a way to market your tournaments.
Yeah, and it's a very poignant and great question. I've always advised people that if you're looking to stay in the Southeast, focus on what used to be back in the day, the Orange Classic, Disney Showcase, maybe Raleigh, maybe Jefferson Cup, things that realistically maybe a college coach would come to see you play. And as you talk to these coaches, ask them, what tournaments do you go to? What events do you go to? And if that's a school you're really interested in, whether your club team gets accepted or plays in those tournaments or not, you have to find a way to maybe guest play or find a way to get up to those tournaments. And a lot of these better showcase tournaments now have player pools where you can get randomly picked up by teams that need additional players. Would I like to go to San Diego and Las Vegas to their showcases? You'd never have any shortage of chaperones and parents that want to go. But, are the coaches from California and out west, are they really recruiting a lot of Florida kids? Again, I don't know that question. Some are, some aren't. So you want to spend your time and your dollars, to geographic areas and tournaments that, will meet that need. But again, the best barometer is still the, ask the college coaches, where can you watch me play at? Because college coaches have limited recruiting dollars, they have limited time, and most of their recruiting gets done in the off season. So that even limits further what tournaments you should be considering. Because if there are tournaments in September, October, November, you might get an assistant coach come out and see you play, or a director of operations, or a volunteer coach. Whereas in the spring, you might see the head coach themselves. I give our Florida coaches a lot of credit. I've seen Mark Krikorian from FSU at a U13 State Cup or President's Cup game, starting early, identifying players, whether it's for his camp business or to start tracking players early. Becky Burley, same thing at UF. So a lot of them do a great job starting early, identifying players. But obviously the club reputation helps if they produce players, if they have an annual showcase at that particular club that's well known. That could be a good investment of time and dollars. But I would say geographically, where do I really realistically see myself going to school? And another thing kind of in hand with that is the problem with some of these showcase tournaments is if my team gets accepted and I want to reach out to 50 coaches, blast them the night before. And a lot of coaches don't even register for these showcase tournaments anymore because they get bombarded with emails. And most of these kids have not even looked into their program or have checked out their school. They just get flooded with last minute, fields and schedules when they've already have their list of who they're going to see put together. But yeah, stay in the geographical area of where most likely you think you want to go to school and focus on those tournaments.
That's great info, Siggi. Thank you very much. That was very, I think this was a great session. So I think we'll end it here. We're a little bit past even. So thank everybody for joining. Siggi's info is up there. I also put his email address in the chat. Please feel free to reach out to us and to Siggi to, expand upon this. It sounds like he's got a lot more information than this. So thank everybody for being here. I am going to stop the recording right now.